Okay, this phone, the OnePlus 8, was basically built with the purpose of beating the iPhone 11. Everything from the cameras to the pricing to the color choice makes it pretty clear what OnePlus have their sights set on. So let's find out if it does that. I've just launched another video alongside this one, which is the highest end OnePlus 8 Pro versus the best from Samsung. So after this video, do check that one out too. Also, that custom Mr. Who's the Boss poster you can see behind me, that's from Displate, who've sponsored this video, but more on that later. In terms of the media kit that I received with this OnePlus 8, it's more or less the same unboxing experience as for the OnePlus 8 Pro, which I covered in the other video if you want to have a look. But I will just reiterate this, I love the retail packaging on these new OnePlus phones. If OnePlus are going to raise the prices of their phones from mid-range to almost high-end, it's at least good to see that they're presented accordingly. The OnePlus 8 is pretty much the most comfortable phone I've ever held. The phone has the same curved back and soft touch matte finish as its Pro counterpart, but it's slimmer, it has a smaller camera bump, and is noticeably lighter. That, my friends, is quite the combination. It feels better than my Samsung to hold, better than the Huawei, it feels sure enough better than the iPhone 11. That said, the iPhone 11 is hardly a bad feeling phone. I like the matte rails all the way around the sides, and its palm-friendly size. It's almost completely usable with one hand, which brings me to the only thing I would say about the OnePlus 8 design. It may be the slimmer and lighter phone from the company, but it's still not small. The display is tall enough that I can still barely reach halfway up with my thumb. But that display, holy moly, the difference is just astronomical. By every possible metric I could think of, OnePlus has the better panel. It's larger, 6.55 inches versus 6.1. It uses AMOLED tech for deeper contrast than Apple's LCD, and it's much higher resolution. You're looking at a Full HD Plus panel, which gives it about 80% more pixels on its screen than the iPhone. But the gap gets bigger. You've got OnePlus's slim border and tiny hole punch cutout, which makes the iPhone look a little bit like a toy in comparison. And it's brighter, a little brighter if you're looking head on, but because of how LCD screen quality tends to deteriorate from harsh viewing angles, OnePlus is much brighter when you're looking from anywhere but head on. I really can't emphasize this enough. From the front, these phones quite literally look 5 years apart. This is the high-end BMW to this phone's Fiat 500. And then add to that, the OnePlus 8 has a fluid 90Hz refresh rate versus Apple's 60, so it's more responsive too. It's not 120Hz like the OnePlus 8 Pro, but I think there is a bigger jump between 60 and 90 than there is between 90 and 120. Oh yeah, and also in the screen of the OnePlus, you've got a fingerprint scanner, with a scanning area wide enough that you can even miss it slightly and you'll still get in. While with the iPhone you'll be using secure 3D face unlocking, which, to be fair, is probably the more seamless option between the two. OnePlus does have face scanning too, but because it's just using a front camera, not a proper 3D scanner, it could potentially in theory be breached by someone if they really want to get into your phone. Anyways, while the iPhone's display doesn't exactly fill you with confidence, you can't say this is not a seriously fast phone. In terms of performance, it's every bit as well spec'd as the $1,000 iPhone 11 Pro. It sings along no matter the task, whatever game, whatever app, you'll struggle to make the phone skip a beat. Mind you, the same thing is true for OnePlus. It's using the latest Snapdragon 865 chip, ultra-fast UFS 3.0 storage, and up to 12 gigs of RAM. The only thing it loses versus the 8 Pro is that it has slightly older LPDDR4X RAM versus LPDDR5, which consumes a little more power and isn't quite as fast. Between these two, the OnePlus and the iPhone, Antutu benchmark will tell you OnePlus is about 20% faster if you wanted to put a number on it, but I personally struggle to see a difference. What I did notice though, with the OnePlus, with its slightly more up-to-date spec sheet, is a couple of more general performance improvements. A better Wi-Fi range, for example. I could sit in my back garden watching videos on this. And 5G. For a lot of people this isn't exactly a big deal right now, but in 2 years' time, when you're still using the same phone, it might well be. You might want to be able to pop a 5G SIM card in. It's tricky though, because I think given the choice, OnePlus wouldn't have added 5G to this non-Pro OnePlus 8. Because it's expensive. It's a big part of the reason why this phone costs what it does. The problem is that there's just not enough competition in the smartphone chip market. If you want the best performance, you need to use Qualcomm's Snapdragon 865 chip, but then with that, Qualcomm bundles a mandatory 5G modem. So as a result, this phone is probably at least $50 more expensive than OnePlus would have wanted it to be. Anyways, I mentioned earlier that OnePlus is clearly targeting the iPhone 11 with this phone. And it's kind of obvious, I mean, everyone wants a piece of Apple's market share. But another telltale sign is is specifically what they've done with the cameras. Both phones have made the decision to have an ultra-wide but skip the telephoto camera, which at this kind of upper mid-range / high-end price is actually quite a rare move. So both phones have one main camera and one ultra-wide, and then OnePlus also has a third macro camera, which, to be honest, is a bit strange. I've got nothing against macro cameras, but in my eyes there's a clear hierarchy of importance for smartphone camera systems. You've got a high-end main camera, you need that. Then you want an ultra-wide, and then if you've got resources, let's have a telephoto. And then, if you've still got resources to spare, we'll have a macro camera. But in terms of priority, it's like, you know, somewhere down here. So yeah, telephoto would have been better, but I guess a macro camera is just cheaper. Maybe the company's still trying to keep 3 cameras on the phone so it doesn't look like a downgrade from last year's 7T. As it stands, this macro camera, even in ideal lighting conditions, is just not very good, and has some strange circular lens blur. But as far as the 2 main lenses on the OnePlus, I'm pretty impressed. I was kind of raising my eyebrows during my briefing of the phone, because it's actually got the same camera hardware as last year's OnePlus 7T, and very similar to the OnePlus 7 before that. And to be very clear, I don't like that idea. I would almost expect, given that this is a new generation phone, supposedly, from a company as ambitious as OnePlus, that we'd be getting new generation camera hardware. But I tried to go in removing those preconceptions, and I actually came away quite impressed. The company is making big strides in software processing. For the most part, I think OnePlus's daytime photos look crispier than Apple's, and I prefer the slight extra punch it adds to scenes. Plus, while neither has a zoom camera, OnePlus's higher resolution main camera means that zoomed photos do look better. They've also improved video on the 8, but here Apple is still king. The iPhone can just draw out more dynamic range. OnePlus sort of crushes the shadows a little bit. Also, like with the Pro variant, if you're trying to focus on fine objects, OnePlus seems to just keep slipping in and out of focus, while the iPhone is bang on consistently. Apart from these camera niggles though, a lot of this comparison is just a case of OnePlus doing things better than Apple. Even a lot of the things that have been lacking on past OnePlus phones, they've kind of been brought up to par here. Haptics, typing and interacting with this phone gives you lovely crispy vibration feedback. The OnePlus 8 has a Dolby Atmos dual speaker setup, one on the front and one on the bottom. It's very similar to the one on the iPhone, but what I will give to OnePlus is that the vocals are even crisper. The 2 main OnePlus omissions here are a lack of wireless charging and a lack of an official IP certification for water and dust resistance, both of which the iPhone has. These might be big issues for you. For me personally, they're small, especially against the backdrop of the battery situation. While OnePlus ships with a powerful 30-watt fast charger, the iPhone ships with a 5-watt charger that would have made 2011 proud, and it takes like 3 hours to fully charge. And OnePlus's battery capacity is also larger, with 4,300 mAh versus Apple's 3,110. But iPhones tend to be more efficient with the battery they do have, so we'll find out in a detailed battery comparison very soon. If you could subscribe for that, that would be amazing. On balance then, the only real case to be made for the iPhone 11 over the OnePlus is software. This is an Android versus iOS situation, so if things like FaceTime and AirDrop and being able to make phone calls on your Mac, if these things are really important to you, then you should think carefully about moving to Android, because you'll lose them. But for every other user, Android users, Apple users who aren't too invested, and those poor souls still on a BlackBerry phone, this is a OnePlus victory. Right out the box, almost everything is the way I would want it on my phone. It gets a lot of the big things right, but also a lot of the small things. You've got a slick, clean user interface, a swipe up anywhere on your screen to bring up your app drawer, a swipe down for your quick toggles, double tap to switch from back to front camera. Simple things. And also hardware-wise, that fingerprint-resistant matte finish, 128GB of storage on the base model, and the fact that the phone comes pre-fitted with a screen protector. These are all great user-friendly decisions. I won't spoil it just yet, but I am working on a video of my top current smartphones, and this features pretty highly. And speaking of things that feature highly, displayed. Think posters for the modern era. High-end, high-resolution metal plates with whatever you want printed on them. I've got a whole load of them here, different styles, different sizes, some generic, some customized, and each one has what looks like a handwritten signature and a hologram tag to show authenticity. And this is cool. You can see I've currently got a future spacey type theme one going on behind there, but you can change it. It uses a magnetic mounting system, so once you've set one up, you can just chop and change at free will. You might have noticed actually, I changed it partway through filming this video. And the benefit of it being metal is that it's not going to rip, it's not going to crease, and it's got this awesome matte, lightly textured finish. It doesn't look cheap at all. The company plants a tree for every display sold, and I've got a discount link, so if you order 1 to 2 through it, you get 27% off, and if you order 3 or more, 35% off. So that's all in the description. Would be amazing if you could check them out. With that being said, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.